Hello and welcome to my first ever tutorial. This is a basic tutorial that will teach newcomers to the Blender community how things work. So today I'm going to be showing off different 3D modeling techniques including extruding, rotating, and scaling. I'm also going to be showing you how to add objects to the scene, and from there we'll be creating a 3D sword. So to start off, this is your scene. In your scene you will see a 3D box, a light, and a camera. To the right, we have our properties menu, which has different rendering techniques. It also has different world properties, scene properties, camera properties, object, and materials, and more. Materials, modifiers, physics tabs, all sorts of things to get involved with further down the line. But today we're going to be focusing on the modifier tab on the right hand side in our properties window. To the left hand side of the screen, we have a toolbar. This toolbar can be accessed with the short key T to turn it on or off. When it's off, there is a little plus sign on the top that you can press to zoom it out. Same can be said for the right hand side over here. The short key is N. It props up another properties task window where we can see different locations, rotations, scale, different dimensions of objects. We can also view different things, change your 3D cursor, shading and display properties. All of these will remain mostly untouched throughout the video. At the bottom of the screen we do have our timeline. This is used for different animation techniques, but that isn't something that we're not going to be focusing on today, so we can just bring it down and get out of the way. We do have a little toolbar on the bottom here. This is where most of our buttons will be pressed. This is where I'm going to spend a lot of my time clicking and showing different techniques on how to do things. So in our scene, we have a box, and if we tap the key on our keyboard, tab, we can actually go into the edit mode. This is where we can begin our 3D modeling. Okay, so to go in, we now have our different vertices that we can click, and then we can achieve this by right-clicking, and we can click 1. Now we can grab on the y-axis or the x-axis, Z, so forth. If we hit Control Z, we can go back and undo our work. To continue on, we have different render settings at the bottom here. This is with the white ball. Here we can view a bouncing box, we can view our wireframe of the model, which isn't really that complicated right now. Solid, which is where most of our modeling will happen in. Texturing, which you can see the light source on, so if we hit tab, right click G to grab, we can actually move around and in real time see the shadows on the box. To continue with our 3D modeling, we do have materials tab as well, which is a different shader, and we have our rendered as well, so we can actually see what the camera sees. So to go back into solid, and we're going to begin by switching our extruding mode to face selection. This can be achieved down in the toolbar here. You can also select edge mode and select different edges, vertices to different vertices, faces for different faces. Okay, so from here our different hotkeys are E to extrude, and here we, if we extrude on whichever face, it follows the axes that is most likely the way that you're moving. In this case, it's following the x-axis with the Z color. Right click to cancel the motion, and then we can see that it's going on the x-axis. And then Control Z to undo our work. So while selecting a face, we can actually hit the rotate tool, which is R, and we can rotate the face. Now here you can actually specify which way it's rotating, because if I rotate like this, it's going to rotate on a weird axis. So if we rotate on the X, we see that it's going to rotate along the X-axis. And if we rotate Y, it's going to rotate along the Y-axis. Rotate Z, same type of thing. It's going to rotate around the Z-axis. These are helpful little shortcuts just to keep the modeling fast and efficient throughout the modeling process. Okay, So to continue, I'm actually going to show you a few different modifiers. Um, the main one that's going to be used throughout this video is actually the mirror modifier. So if we go over to our properties window, we can actually select the modifier tab, which is the wrench. And then we can actually take a look at all the different ones. So you can bevel the object, you can boolean the object, which is cutting stuff out. We can build stuff, mirror stuff, which is what we're going to be using today. We can subdivide, which actually I will show you that now. Subdividing actually just creates double the faces and makes it as smooth as possible, so it'll round out all of those different edges. We'll turn a square into an almost perfect circle. Okay, so to continue, we want to use the mirror modifier, but if we click on the mirror modifier right now, not much is going to happen. This, we can actually tell that something does happen if we were to grab and move the object along what looks to be the x-axis. So if we grab the x and move it, we see that there was a perfect mirror of the box in our scene. Okay, so now we want to use the mirror as just half of our object. Okay, so let's start by cutting off half of the object. So here we're going to Control R and just left click twice to split down half the object. So now we're going to go ahead and hit our face selection tool, which can be found at the bottom toolbar, select one face, and delete all the vertices. If I were to delete just the face, this happens. So you get the face deleted, but you don't delete all of the other objects to delete half of what that object was for complete symmetry. So let's just Control Z that, delete, and vertices. So that deletes half the object. So now we're going to go to our modifier tab, which can be found in our properties window to the far right, and then open our mirror modifier. So our mirror modifier is going to mirror it on the x-axis. The thing that I have found with Blender is it seems to be backwards in this properties menu. As you can see right now, it is mirroring off the y-axis using the x, and it is mirroring, like, and if I were to complete on the y-axis, it's actually going to mirror on the x. It's really quite weird, but in any event, the x-axis works fine. Okay, so with the box here, we're actually going to start extruding and just making things in symmetrical, like a symmetrical shape. So let's start by extruding out along the x-axis, and we can do that by hitting E and then X, and it'll extrude on the x-axis. And we can click and it'll stop at the given point that you selected. So let's just keep continuing and extrude on very random extrude points on the actual object. So this is the object we made just by using the mirror selection tool. So if we wanted to create just a basic object, also and to add different objects into your scene, you can go down to the bottom toolbar and hit add, and then from here you can add different meshes like planes, cubes, circles, UV spheres, all those different things. We're going to stick with the cube today. So I'll add a cube into my scene, and it'll actually add it to wherever you've left clicked kind of recently. That's where the 3D cursor actually ends up. So when the 3D cursor is off the center grid and we add objects to the scene, and we can do that also with Shift A, Mesh, Cube, it's going to add it to that 3D cursor. The 3D cursor is actually pretty cool and can be used for all sorts of different tasks. Okay, so to continue through with our box, if we just continue in and start extruding, rotating, we learn different tools, learn different things, how the faces actually rotate. And we can see here with this box here that rotating faces along weird axes actually results in a weird sort of clipping. So this face, although one face, is trying to make itself two different polygons. And we can see that by the bend in which this face is protruding from, as opposed to a flat face on a more reasonable axis. To fix these, generally we can just rotate back the box and it'll fix the face. Another way to fix that is we can actually go into our toolbar over on the side in our tools, scroll all the way down, and we can hit knife. Using the knife tool, we go right into the corner, and this will auto snap to the vertice, and we can left click. Here we can draw a line to the other one, try and get right on the snap point, left click again, and then hit enter. This fixes that face that gets all weird after extruding and rotating on a weird axis. Okay. So I believe you guys know about as much as you need to get started into the sword. So let's get started and actually start by building the hilt of the sword. This is going to be the guard and the bottom handle place. We're then going to white box out the actual sword, blade, and sheath as well, if we want to continue doing that later in the tutorial. So, I'm going to actually add a box to my scene, and I'm going to reset that to the 0 point. So I'm going to scroll to the top on our toolbar to the right. This is with N, and we can go to our location. This is for the actual object that is selected. So if we add another object to the scene and move it, we can do that by hitting Shift A, Mesh, Cube, and then just the grab key, which is G, and move it over. We can actually see that they're very different locations. And if I were to click on one of them and hit 0, 0, 0, we know that it goes back to the origin point. The origin point is necessary for most of your modeling. This is where you have your grid, you have your different blend units, which equal out to different actual measurements in real life. Blender's default, I believe, is set in centimeters. You can change that in the user preferences using File, User Preferences. You can change it to be meters, kilometers, imperial, and metric systems alike. So let's go into our model, and I don't like the toolbars being in the way now, so I'm going to click N. I do, however, like the toolbar T for different knife tools, skew tools, and all of those to be open. Okay, so let's go in and let's cut our cube in half, like previously. So Control R to do the loop cut, and then grab the face, delete vertices. Here we're going to add the mirror, and on our x-axis, and it's going to load just fine. One problem with the mirror as of right now, if I were to grab all the faces and move, it's going to split apart. This is where I come over to the modifier tab and I click on clipping. This is going to fuse both mirrors, or both sides of the mirror together, so if I were to grab, it's going to stay connected. And this is going to be the base work for our sword. So let's start in by just kind of moving around different faces and make a hilt that kind of suits for us. So I'm going to go with a kind of basic hilt shape. You guys can go as crazy as you'd like with this. This is always fun to do. I think I'm going to go like that, and maybe rotate it on a funny axis. Why not? No, I don't like that. Control Z. To do looping faces, if you want to select more than one face, just hit Alt and then click on the other face. So if I want to grab this loop, I want to click on this line, it grabs that. If I want to grab this line, I want to click on this line. It's a little bit confusing, but once you get into the habit of just hitting Alt and click, you can get different loop cuts. To add multiple loop cuts, hold Shift, Alt, and then right click, and that will grab multiple faces, multiple loop cuts. To just grab multiple faces, Shift, click, right click, and grab all the faces that you'd like. So I'm actually going off of a sword that I'm trying to do off memory here. I believe it was in Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. as the first sword that you acquire. Anyway, I think that looks about right. It's a little long, so let's grab these faces by alt selecting, shift alt selecting, and then push it in. I think that's a little bit smaller. Yeah, that looks about right. From here, I actually want to use the bevel tool as well. This will get me this will turn my sharp faces into more rounded and easier to work with kind of bevels. So if I were to up the width of the lines or the bevel, it changes the different width here. I think I actually like it at 0.1, so let's just stay there. Okay, cool, so I like that, but I want to continue on. Okay, so I seem to like it at the 1 width, and I'm going to continue on with adding different details into the hilt here, or the handguard here. So I don't need the bevel anymore, so I'm going to apply it. And then I'm going to go in and just make sure all of my faces look however they're supposed to. And I'm going to decide which I want my front to be. I'm going to have my front face the Y on the positive direction. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to take this face and I would like to make a little plate. So I'm going to extrude this face downward. So I'm going to extrude and then click right away, and this is going to make the face in the middle. And then I'm going to scale using S, and that's how I'm going to start my kind of inscription. So I want this to come out, make sure, yep, kind of want it like that. And I'm going to add a loop cut here. And I feel like I want that. Oh yeah, and I'm changing between different selection tools. So I like to use edge selecting when I'm moving more than one vertice, but not a whole face. So we'll go in here and I'll do that. I also want, let's make it kind of like that. Yeah, why not? Okay, so I'm going to switch back to face. I don't like how far that's protruding. Okay, so that'll work for me. So now I'm going to make the handguard, or the handle, the grip. Control A, and I'm going to add a circle now. So this circle looks to be very high res, and we don't really want that. It looks like I'm going for a more toon kind of shader look, so we're going to go with the lower polygons. So we want to go over to our tool panel on the left here. When we add circles, this is going to be the first thing that pops up. If I were to click anywhere on the screen or move the circle, I can't actually change that anymore. So let's delete that and add a new one. So every time you add one, you're going to get this panel. As soon as you move the circle or go into the edit mode, this panel will go away on the left here. So I'm actually going to change that to about 12 vertices, I think. Yeah, that'll work. And I'm going to use that for my handle. And to bring up the toolbar on the right, and I want to set this to the absolute 0. And there I'm going to pull down and kind of line it up as best as I can. To move the camera all different ways instead of just peering around or zooming in and out. Shift brings you up and down, shift and scroll, up and down, control and scroll brings you right and left. So when I want to get super close to the object, just kind of move my way in using the different camera options. From there, I don't want it to be that big, so I'm going to scale it. Going to bring it down. Tab to go into edit mode. And then because we're in face selection at the bottom here, it's not going to extrude anything, so we want to go to vertices or edge selection. I like using vertices when extruding different circles, so I will stay in the vertices tab. Then we'll extrude on the z-axis downward, and then we can grab and kind of play around with how long we want this handle. That looks okay, and I'm going to make this kind of a bastard sword, so I hand it a half. So I'm going to add a loop cut, which is Control R, and then we click once, and now we can drag up and down our different loop cuts. I think that's going to fit right there. Okay. So now I'm going to take that loop cut. I'm going to add one more right directly in the middle. So we're going to Control R, right, and it's going to snap to the middle of any one of these vertices. So if we're in the middle of these two vertices, it's going to snap to the middle. If we're in the middle of these two vertices, it'll go up there. Vice versa. If I'm in the middle of those ones, it'll go up and down. So I want down here. I'm going to click twice. And then I'm going to scale this down, and I'm going to start that kind of concave feeling for the hand in half. So for the hilt, I think I want to do more of like a leather strapping. So to achieve this, I'm actually going to do it kind of in a cheat way. I will be using a different render software in Blender. Instead of using Blender's basic render, I'll be switching to Cycles later and kind of using just a trick to get around the face selection and make it look a little bit more like leather wrapping or something like that. So I'm going to extrude the whole around. So if we click on a face, Alt, and then click on the other one closest to the line, it's going to loop around and get the whole loop. Here I want to extrude and then click right away. That's going to keep the extrude at the origin point of where you were starting from. And then I would want to scale. So we're going to hit S and then move our mouse up a little bit. And now we can see that we've moved the extrude level out, but it's just too big for the handle to look right. So we're going to scale on the Z-axis as well, down. And this is where we're going to kind of get that feeling that it's, whoops. That it's still wrapped, I guess. So, there. I will be using that to go further. So now we're going to delve into the bottom of the handle. I believe it's the pommel. So using the current handle model that we have, we're going to tab back in and go into the bottom and get our edges, or our vertices. We're going to Alt select the bottom vertices. And here we're going to hit P, and this is going to separate. So this is going to duplicate that ring so that we can use it on a different model. So if we hit P and then selection, we can now hit tab and then just right click on the bottom, and this will get us our pommel start. So I'm going to extrude from there, and I want it to go kind of out. I'm going to put a loop cut in the middle and bring that in. That up, I think. And then I'm just going to drop, bring that in, loop cut in here, scale that. So now that's what our pommel's going to look like. I'm going to scale the pommel up a little bit. I'm also going to change the origin point of this, because the origin is at the top where our old model is. To do that, I scroll all the way over in our tool options, all the way up, and I go to set origin, and I want origin to the middle of the geometry, and that'll move our origin point down here. So for this, I just want this to scale up because I want it to appear like we have different layers, as we kind of did with the hilt here, or the handle, to try and cheat the kind of leather padding. So here I'm going to go into the model again, and I'm going to grab this top ring, I'm going to extrude, and then I'm going to scale downward. And now that gives off the appearance that it's protruding from the actual blade, or the guard. So, to continue this, I'm actually going to start doing a little bit more detail, and I'm going to show you one or two different things, and then I'm going to speed up the video and finish off the details in the hilt, and we'll go from there. Okay, so another tool to show you guys is actually the smoothing tool. Over on the left here, we have shading, smooth, or flat. Flat is what we're currently seeing, and that's why they're all harsh edges. So with the object selected, we want to go over to the left and hit smooth. So this will give us smoother faces, and now we don't see those jagged flat edges. To continue in with making things a little bit better, we can go into our modifier here and actually click on edge split. So this is going to try and find the best split in those faces to keep them still smooth but also have harder edges. And it's close. 31 degrees looks to be the perfect. So we're going to note that for later, and I'm going to use it. I'm going to turn it off though, and I'm also going to go back over and go to flat. So now I'm just going to add a little bit more detail involving the hilt, and I will walk you through the whole way. So let's go on in. I'm going to add some loop cuts in here, and some in here, and I'm just going to smooth out that kind of bastard sword feel. With this, I want to give off the illusion that there's actually like padding. To do this, I'm going to continue in with adding loop cuts. So if I click Control R, I can actually now put in my specified segments too. So the segments that I think that I'm going to need, I'm going to use 6, maybe it looks like. Yeah, that'll do. 6. I'm gonna left click twice to finish my selection. In here, I'm going to continue on and extrude all of these out, size them down a little bit. And I want to view this on a flat scale, so I'm going to hit 1 and 5, and this is going to put me to the front orthopodic view. And here I'll be able to do more accurate modeling. Okay, so now that I'm done, I just added the smoothing group back to smooth, and I turned on our edge split. And that is how we kind of fake um, the handle wrap kind of look on a basic model here. It adds a little bit of extra polygons, but we're okay with that. It's not going to be too much in the long haul. So this bottom here, I actually want to be smooth as well with an edge split. So edge splits actually duplicate the amount of faces that your weapon already has or your model already has, and that's how it makes it so sharp, but also smooth. Okay, so I think that's a good little hilt to start with. Now we're going to move into the blade, and to do that, I'm going to reset my 3D cursor. So I want to go N. I'm going to scroll all the way down to my 3D cursor. I'm going to hit 0, 0, 0. Now I don't need that anymore, so N. And I'm going to Shift A, add cube. From here, I'm going to size on the X. Size on the Y. Down till I feel like it is a nice blade length. And I'm going to kind of move it up, size it to see what I think a blade of this might look. Okay, so I'm gonna say that probably looks about right. Okay, so back into tab, I'm going to grab this face, and I'm just going to bring it up until I feel it's the proper length. You don't have to be too accurate with this, as it is just a 3D model, you're not printing it. If you were printing, you'd want to be as accurate as possible. Okay, so I kind of like that. So now I'm going to make a cut right in the middle, and I'm going to delete one half of the object, and I want it to be the same half that I used for the hilt. So I'm going to delete that side. I'm going to add the mirror and turn on clipping. Okay, so here I want to go in with my vertices or edges or faces, whichever you want to do. I'm going to make the point. Now the point's going to be a little bit different by the end of the video, but we'll see. Okay, so that looks like an okay blade shape. So now I'd just like to go in, and I like to see if that works the way I want it to. Okay. Okay. So now I'm just going to work on the kind of tip of the blade, and that'll be the two sides. So I just extruded the face kind of downward a little bit. I just have to work on some of the line placements, and it should be okay for the quality that we're going off of. So I don't actually like this face. I'm going to delete it. I want this to happen on the other side of the object as well, so I'm actually going to cut this in half, and I'm going to delete these vertices on the other side. Now, with our mirror tool, we can add the Y, and it's going to be the exact same on the Y and the Z axes, or the X axes. So now I'll be able to go in. I'll have to add a vertex to the bottom here. But once I'm in, I'll be able to, oh, right. If you click Z, you can go into your wireframe mode or access it from the bottom here. So if we go in and we go to our bottom face, which is going to be this guy right here, we actually can line it up. I already have a face there. So then I'm going to grab this vertex and the bottom vertex I need to attach it to, and I'm going to go over to the mirror, or sorry, the merge tool, which is in our tools to the left at the very bottom, merge, and I want to merge it at the last vertex I clicked, which was the bottom one. So I'll have to do that on this side as well. Okay, so now this face is on. There. Okay. So now I'm going to take these faces that make up the inner of the sword, and I'm going to delete those vertices. And I'm going to take this whole loop cut, and I'm just going to move it in. And now we have our cutout of our sword. Yay! I would like a loop cut in the middle here, so that I may round this off a little bit, because it's a little bit too sharp, so I'm going to do... okay, so I built it kind of backwards, so we're going to have to press 1 to go into our front, Control 1 to go to the back. The back is where all of our vertices are, and that's where we need to work. I'll grab these two vertices, and I'm going to pull them up a little bit, just to make the blade a little bit less sharp. Oh, yeah, that works. Okay. I would like to model a little inside of the blade. So I'm going to go in, I'm just going to add a loop cut to the top, and add a loop cut down here. Right there, why not? And I'm going to make this one a flat line. So SZ will flatten this out. If we just keep pressing it and keep going, it'll flatten out. Same with the top. Shift scroll. I think I want to keep the top relatively the same. So let's face select, click in on right on the middle face, E, drag it in a little bit, scale, drag it in, move it, just kind of make it fit. Okay, so I know these are going to be kind of a pain. Okay, that gets that. And I like to have that. Although that needs to be down. Move. Alright, we're just getting different scaling. Trying to make things look as symmetrical as possible. Okay, so I like that kind of look for our sword. Thank you for watching this YouTube tutorial, and I hope you learned something today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. Have fun. Have a nice day.